Hi, everybody. I'm Rob Tuck. I am Associate Professor of Modern Japanese Literature and Culture here at Arizona State University. And one of the things that I work on is ninja, their history, their literature, and just about everything. And I'm here to answer a question. This is from Marco in Chandler. And the question is it true that ninja killed their victims by dripping poison down a thread into their mouths as they were sleeping? Okay. The short answer to that is no, it's not true. The long answer is much more interesting, and that's what we're here to look at today. So let's back up just a little bit and explain where this question comes from. Now, if you are a film fan or maybe an anime fan, there's a chance that you have seen this technique somewhere before, right? Where someone tries to drip poison down a thread into a sleeping victim's mouth. You might have seen it, for instance, in the 1967 James Bond film, You Only Live Twice. You might have seen it in the 90s comedy Grosse Pointe Blank, which stars an assassin who uses this exact technique. I think it's John Cusack. You might also have seen it in a recent anime called The World's Greatest Assassin Gets Reincarnated in Another World as an Aristocrat. And yes, that actually is the title. But if you're also a fan of ninja history, there's a decent chance you will have seen this in a ninja history book as something that actually happened. Okay, so if you're a fan of ninja, the chances are you probably come across this being claimed as a real historical event. And it isn't. But finding out what exactly happened here is far more interesting than just saying it didn't happen. So let's do that. The point of origin for the idea that ninja used poison threads to assassinate people is from a 1962 Japanese film called Shinobi no Mono. Okay, this was a kind of a sleeper hit in Japan. It really popularized the idea of the ninja as we now know and love them. And what happens in this film basically is that a ninja called Ishikawa Goemon tries to assassinate a powerful warlord called Oda Nobunaga by doing exactly what we've just been talking about, by dripping poison down a thread into Nobunaga's mouth while he is sleeping. Now, both Ishikawa Goemon and Oda Nobunaga, both a ninja and the victim, were real people. They did exist, but this particular event is complete fiction. It never happened. So how did it get into the historical record? Well, the answer is simple. In 1970, one particular ninja writer by the name of Andrew Adams watched the movie, assumed that the climactic scene had happened, and then put it in his book. And from that point onwards, everybody basically copied him, and that's how we have sightings of this particular claim as recently as 2019 in books that are at least pretending to be serious history. So if this never actually happened, if this isn't actually an historical event and has no connection to ninja, where did it come from? Well, luckily, I'm a professor of Japanese literature, so I know. It actually comes from a 1925 Japanese novel by an author called Edogawa Ranpo. And if Edogawa Ranpo sounds a bit like Edgar Allan Poe, that's not a coincidence, because Ranpo was a mystery writer in Japan who was a great admirer of Edgar Allan Poe. And he was the one who came up with this poison thread technique. It appears in a completely different context, has nothing to do with ninja. Basically, a disturbed individual starts spending time exploring the crawl space above his fellow boarders' rooms in his boarding house, a traditional Japanese style house where you've got like an open ceiling space, and eventually he decides to murder one of them, and he does it with exactly the method that we've been talking about, by dripping poison down the thread. How did that get to Shinobi no Mono? Well, the answer is that the screenwriter for the film Shinobi no Mono was a good buddy of Edogawa Ranpo. They'd actually worked on no fewer than 4 adaptations of Ranpo's novel to movies over the preceding 15 years or so, and they had met. They knew each other personally. So that's where it comes from. It was adapted from an earlier novel in 1925 into the 1962 movie. I've read the novel, by the way, on which the movie Shinobi no Mono is based, and the poison thread technique isn't in there. So that's pretty conclusive that it was borrowed by the screenwriter, a guy called Takaiwa Hajime, from the 1925 novel. What's even more interesting is that there's a reasonable chance that Ranpo himself got the inspiration for this technique from somewhere else. actually from Sherlock Holmes, from an 1892 Sherlock Holmes novel called The Adventure of the Speckled Band, in which the murderer kills someone by letting a poison snake down a bell pull, the thing you use to call for the servants, into an otherwise locked room. And Edgar Allan Poe definitely knew about this story because he translated it into Japanese from the English. So, although it's a really cool technique, it's very striking and very original, this almost certainly never happened. The whole thing is basically fiction all the way down from start to finish. There is no point at which this becomes real history. And unfortunately, this is kind of a common thing in a lot of what's pretending to be ninja history as a whole, mistaking events from modern fiction, from modern films, and from modern novels as historical events is really quite common. So yeah, now you know. And if you want to know more about looking at ninja lore, you might want to consider taking my course this coming spring 2026 semester, Japanese 424, The Art of the Ninja. We're going to look at the whole history of the concept, all of the stuff that underpins it, the evidence, the texts, the movies, the whole thing. It's going to be fantastic. I highly recommend it.